What's up, everybody? It's Shelby with Hooks, Books, and Crime, and it's craft and story time, where I tell you a horrible story and crochet. If you like to listen to true crime while you craft, or if you just like true crime, let me be your girl. I'm trying to make it once a week. I sit down and crochet and work on one of my projects and tell you a story. I know I've been very inconsistent. I think it's been almost a month since I posted last, but if you can't tell, I sound like shit. We've all been sick. My daughter has some crazy infection that is breaking down her muscles. So life has been lifing very hard. I know I say that all the time, but yeah, now it's kicked into fucking high gear. I don't know. What else? Our story today is taking place in the UK. It's quite tragic story. It brought a lot of awareness at the time as to what these circumstances really mean and how they can progress. It's a pretty well-known story, but it's definitely an important story. We are covering the story of Alice Ruggles. So Alice Ruggles was the third of four children, and she grew up in a small village called Turlingston. I hope I'm saying that right. I believe not too far outside of London. And she is, this vibrant young girl, and she grows into a vibrant woman. She's very personable. She's extroverted. She's easygoing, but she's also very determined. She's one hell of a fencer, to where when she finishes high school, she actually attends university in Newcastle at Northumbria University, and she joins their fencing team, and she does quite well there. Because she's so extroverted and just such a sweetheart, she makes friends very easily. She befriends girls on the team. She makes friends outside of the team. She she's like an adorable person. Like, you look at her and you just get, like, just the pictures of her. She seems like she just gives off good energy, positive energy. She seems like she's very happy-go-lucky, and she wants the best for everybody around her. And from what it sounds like, her growing up in a small village, because she just had this larger than life personality, it made sense for her to want to be in a larger city and amongst more people, more culture, more exposure to just anything and everything. When Alice graduates from university, she stays in Newcastle. She gets a job there, and she does quite well. She's a good employee. She has a great work ethic, but she also seems very responsible, financially responsible as well. She was raised well, and she knows what to do, and she wants to do things right. So at some point in, I want to say, like, late 2015, Alice and one of her friends, both girls actually, are going through a breakup. And her friend, while she was still in her previous relationship, they had booked a trip to Sri Lanka. Since her friend and her boyfriend had split up, her friend, asks if Alice wants to go ahead and go on the trip with her, and she agrees. Now, there's an adorable picture that her friend posted on Facebook. Just, lighthearted post with the girls on the plane waiting to depart. And she says, we haven't even left yet, or something along these lines, that they haven't even left yet, and Alice is already being hit on. And it's just this cute picture of them. And on this picture, somebody comments, and this guy that comments, Alice doesn't know him, but he's friends with her friend. And he comments, I can see why, in like his little winky face. Very flirtatious, very harmless, right? Well, this guy catches Alice's eye. His name is Trimmin Harry Dillon. He goes by Harry because Trimmin Dillon is kind of fucking funny. Trimmin Dillon, what are you doing? I'm Trimmin Dillon. All right. Now, while they're on this Sri Lanka trip, Alice is in constant contact with Harry. I'm assuming he's the one who reached out to her because she was tagged in the post. Um, I don't know if it was the other way around. I just assume, by his personality, and we'll get into that, he seems like the type that would be the one to make the first move and, reach out to make contact. So they're in Sri Lanka. They're having a great time, and Alice is texting up a storm with Harry. They seem to click very well. They grow into this like stage very, very quickly. to within a month of their texting. They still haven't met in person yet, but within a month, they're both referring to each other as a couple, to themselves as a couple. And Alice seems quite, over the moon with this relationship. He's a good-looking guy. He seems very nice and accomplished. So she's very optimistic about this relationship. However, in just the beginning, early stages of this relationship, there is a red flag that comes up. And this red flag is that Harry seemed to have this expectation of an immediate reply to his text. And if she didn't, he would actually start messaging her friends and emailing them like, hey, can you have Alice respond to me? What's Alice doing? Tell her to respond to me. Which is so fucking weird. But, and that just, it's just so awkward. Because I'm sure that's just like, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of embarrassment for Alice there because it's kind of just like, oh, that's weird. And, and it's one thing, right? When it's a situation where maybe she went out to a bar, she went out clubbing or something that night. He can't get a hold of her. It's been a few hours and he just wants to know if she's okay. And reaching out to one of her friends like, hey, she hasn't texted me, everything all right? That's different. But in this case, it seems like it could be like the most trivial message and he needs a response, which we know is a sign of a form of control. And he seems to be putting that out quite early. This expectation of Alice responding immediately seemed to put her in quite like a frantic state. She seemed very anxious because of the expectation. And I wouldn't be surprised again, since he's messaging her friends, she's probably anxious because if you're embarrassed, you don't want that to keep happening. So you kind of want to get to the message before he starts bothering your loved ones or your friends. That's very awkward. And, I wouldn't be surprised, like you said, there's probably some embarrassment, maybe even some shame or like some guilt. That's really rough. So in January of 2016, Harry Dillon, who he's actually in the military and he's stationed in Edinburgh, Scotland, he takes some leave and actually goes to meet Alice in person. This is their first time ever seeing each other in person. And, Alice is, that whole nervous, excited feeling. She probably had some butterflies in her stomach, and you have all these thoughts, right? Like, do I hug him? Should I hug him? Do I kiss him? What do I say? There's just so many thoughts going through your head, especially when you're that young. Like, it was probably just such a cute little moment. And so when they meet in person, they're off without a hitch. They're getting along great. They're having a great time. She's, both of them are just over the moon with each other. They really, really like each other. They're a good looking couple. And everything seems all in well. So after that visit, he goes back to his barracks. And then May 2016, he comes back. And on this visit, they actually go to Alice's parents back home. And she introduces him to her family. And there's really no red flags for Alice's parents either with Harry. He's very polite. He's very reassuring in his intentions with Alice. He's very kind to her. There's really nothing weird. The only thing that her dad found a little off was he seemed a little performative in the fact that he just seemed a little over-practiced with saying the right things and answering the questions and like asking the right questions. But I think at the same time, things like that, you can kind of chalk them up to just being nervous and wanting to make a good impression. So I would say it's a yellow flag. It's a little cautionary, but it could be natural nerves or something more sinister. You don't know. You can't really write them off on something like this. However, so Alice and Harry actually returned back to her parents to visit again a few weeks later, more towards the end of May. And her mom noticed that there seemed to be a little bit of a difference in the atmosphere between them. They're a little bit more tense, and she thinks that maybe there had started to be cracks in the relationship. And when you think about it, there's a lot of expectations to live up to when everything has been just through text and not in person. Because each person is building up this idea of who you are just based off of your messages. But when you're in person, you see like their little habits and their little quirks and everything. And that's very different. So like, it's very understandable for them to maybe be trying to adjust and everything because they have to adjust to who that person is in real life as rather than what they want you to see and hear on your messages. But aside from that, there wasn't like this big blowout. They weren't having any like major arguments. Again, there's really nothing. It's just, for all you know, you just caught him on a bad day. But after that, the red flags really, really like took storm for Alice. He started to really, really assert more control over her. Of course, there's the expectation to immediately answer. But then there was also this expectation of if she was going to be going out with her friends without him, he'd want her to send him a picture of what she's wearing. And it sucks because like I've been in a relationship like that. And the first time you think like, oh, they just, they're attracted to me. They want to see what I'm wearing, right? They want to be flirtatious. And then they keep asking and you realize like, oh, or not just that, they start making comments like, you need to change. I don't like what you're wearing. Why are you wearing that? Who are you trying to attract? It becomes a lot very quickly. And even if you have no bad intentions, you just like what you're wearing, it can go really bad, really hard, like really quickly. It sucks. And that is what is happening to Alice. He was also always wanting to know where she's at and where they're going to be. And sometimes he would actually just show up unannounced and uninvited, which is a huge red flag because then you can never relax. Even if you're not doing anything wrong, you kind of feel like you're caught doing something because that's how they make you feel. You start to feel a little trapped. And then he also really started to try to break her mentally. He wouldn't criticize her directly. It would be like these little offhand comments of her appearance and her, like, her nose and things like that, and comparing her to other girls. And then he would also kind of like drop little, not necessarily, like, I guess, yeah, like little hints, these little performative things that would imply that maybe he was with a different woman. And when this, of course, would trigger her, then he would like start gaslighting the shit out of her that this is all her insecurities. She's the problem. He's setting up this thing and it's Alice's fault that everything's coming down, right? And the sad part is it becomes very obvious for her family and friends that this is taking a toll on Alice. She's lost a lot of weight and she's already a small girl. She's lost a lot of weight. She looks more sullen and sad. She's very anxious. And she's not smiling as much, and that's just very out of character for her. Now, who is this Trimmin' Harry Dillon? He is a only child to a family that has, some sort of status. His father is a colonel in the Indian Army, so he was raised quite privileged. However, he was also, most military families, there was a lot of discipline and a lot of high expectations of you. And he seemed to thrive in that. He moved to the UK to attend university. And that is also when he decided to join the UK Army, the British Army, which is where he got stationed in Scotland, in Edinburgh. But the thing about him characteristically, he's personality wise though, he is he was a good looking dude. So this made him very arrogant. He's very big headed. And this guy has a very high sense of self where he thinks he can kind of sway anyone to his side. And he also kind of feels like he's owed everything and shouldn't be told no. So, just really a recipe for a disaster with people like that. They're always going to hurt someone, whether it's emotionally, physically, mentally. They do a lot of damage in their wake. Late June, early July, Alice gets a message from a girl she doesn't know, and it says, It basically says something like, "Are you aware that your boyfriend's cheating on you?" And this girl comes with receipts. She sends her screenshots of his conversations with her. And I mean, this is definitive proof that Harry's cheating on her. And with this evidence, she confronts him. And again, he pulls the whole gaslighting card that it's her insecurities. None of it's true. The girl is a liar. You know, anything and everything but any type of accountability and confession. And for Alice, this is a boundary that she is just not okay with ever being crossed. So she breaks up with him. She's done. That's it. And Harry Dillon does not like rejection. He does, I mean, who does, right? It's just this dickhead just can't handle it. It's almost like he refuses to accept the rejection instead of just taking the L. Now, after this breakup, he starts bombarding Alice with messages, emails, voicemails, anything and everything. But really, because she's not having a deal, like, there really is this weight lifted off of you when you finally get out of those relationships because I don't have to respond now. I don't have to pick up the phone. I don't have to tell you where I'm going. Even when they're being crazy, it takes a little bit of weight off because you know that you can just let them sit in their misery. You don't owe them anything. And with that, Alice seemed to kind of turn a corner. She was seeming more like herself. She was very fearful of him because of how much it was happening. And like, he persisted for a long time. It's not like, it went for a few days. It kept going all through the summer into fall. This guy just was relentless. And, to make matters worse, he actually had the password to her Facebook and had hacked into it and started messing around in there. But probably the worst part of this was he started messaging her and quoting things that she had said or texted to someone else after she broke up with him, to where he would have no knowledge of these conversations. And this made it very clear that at some point while they were still together, he had installed spyware onto her phone. So she actually goes to her brother and he helps her do a full reset to get that shit off. And this is when I think the concern escalated because of the spyware. That's very weird. And that's very scary. Like, I don't know. I know like girls laugh about doing that shit to men because they want to know what they're doing and everything for like, I guess because I've gone through that. I've never had spyware installed, but like I've had my ex show up when I'm driving home, show up at my work, follow me to the store. It was awful. And like just that's fucking terrifying. It's such an invasion of privacy, and it also gives you this feeling of like he's everywhere. That's terrible. So the harassment's still going, and Alice actually goes ahead and moves from Newcastle. She moves to she moves to Gateshead. And from it sounds like it's actually very close, if not like right next to Newcastle, almost like on the other side of the river or some shit. I don't know. I could be mistaking that for something else, but it's out of the proximity, but not too far to where she could still commute to work and things like that. And she did this that way he wouldn't know where she lives. And she's actually to the point where she's so on edge that, she has a roommate who makes, their best effort to be home when Alice gets home from work so she's not home alone because the roommate's concerned by this behavior too. And also, Alice has a coworker drop her off at home so she's not walking home alone or partying. She's never alone because she's scared. And her coworkers, everybody feels like this is justifiable concern. So it's all hands on deck. Everybody's helping her. She has a village. It's like, so everybody who did their best for her, like, and really, really helped her, I just want to say thank you as a domestic violence survivor myself. I mean, I couldn't imagine having that much support. That's amazing. It really is. Aside from this fear of Harry or, this anxiety, things start to look up She actually meets another man. He lives in Germany. She met him through her sister. And they actually hit it off and get to talking. And she's actually really excited to meet this guy and everything. She's been texting him and everything. I think they've hung out a few times and everything's been going really well. But then there's one night on October 2nd of 2016, Alice gets home and she's actually home alone. And there's a knock at her door not too long after she gets home. She goes to the door, she checks, nobody's there. Happens a few more times, and at this point she gets a little scared. And she's just like, tries to put it out of her mind and goes to bed. Well, then there's a knock at her fucking bedroom window because she's on the ground floor apartment or flat. And she's fucking terrified. She goes ahead and looks through the window, and there's Harry Dillon sliding flowers and chocolates, like just to her window. He doesn't say anything to her, and he leaves. It's not until his drive back that he starts, blowing her up with messages and everything. Nothing threatening, but just, still trying to win her back. Now, this new action really, again, it elevates the concern for Alice, and she's pushed to the point where she has to get the authorities involved. And she's given two options. The first option is that she can hire a solicitor, which would be an attorney, and basically she gets like a court document through them that he cannot contact her. It's basically a no contact order. Or she can get what's called a police information notice or a PIN notice. And what this is it documents everything, and it also puts into an effect that the person that the PIN notice is against, if they were to contact her in any shape or form, they'll be arrested. So she goes with option 2. It's the easiest, quickest way to get it done. And you're kind of just lying in wait after that. Then, October 7th of 2016, it happens. She receives a letter in the mail from Harry. Again, nothing threatening. It's all pleading, trying to get back with her and everything. It also included some pictures of them from when they were together. But she has that no contact order in place. This is a violation, so she calls the police to notify them, and that way he can be arrested. Unfortunately, she was failed during this call. The officer who answered did not see this as a concern because there was nothing threatening in the letter. He kind of just brushed her off. This infuriated Alice, and a horrible sake of foreshadowing occurred where she told her sister, "They'll care when he stabs me." It's just heartbreaking. She really was failed. On October 12th of 2016, Alice is dropped off by a coworker at home. Her roommate's actually out with her boyfriend, so she's home alone. And she's actually making plans with that guy from Germany that she's actually planning on seeing that weekend. So when she goes in, they're texting back and forth, and she is actually picking out an outfit for that week, what she's going to wear when she sees him. And suddenly he stops getting any type of response. My roommate gets home a few hours later, and there's an extra lock on the door for Alice's peace of mind. And it's locked currently at the time, so she can't get in. So she's knocking and calling Alice, but she isn't answering. This causes her to actually have to go around back and climb through a window. The thing is, that window is it's not easy to access. She actually has to climb up the storm drain and kind of shimmy through and hurl herself over. And when she gets inside, it's quite ominous because it's very quiet. It's very dark and it's very quiet, which is weird because she knows Alice is home. So as she goes looking through her, she makes the grim discovery of finding Alice dead in the bathroom. She's covered in blood. There's blood everywhere. It's a very gruesome crime scene. So she calls the police. When she calls the police, she reports the murder. And she makes it very clear that Alice was afraid of Harry Dillon, and he is more than likely the person responsible for this. Good on the police because, well, you know, and the ambulance is en route to Alice to see if maybe, she can be saved. The police head to Edinburgh to question Harry. And enough time has passed that Harry's actually already made it home. Again, remember, it's a 2.5 hour drive. He's made it home, and he actually is in the process of washing his clothes. But, he does not help himself when it comes to looking guilty, because when they go, they actually catch him going out a window, because if he would have gone through, the front door, he would have actually had to sign out, and then they would have known he left and fled. So they catch him trying to go out a window, which is like, that's a guilty fucking move, bitch. And he's charged with murder, and he's taken in for questioning. So again, Harry Dillon really, really thinks that he's like very convincing. He can win people over. He is horribly arrogant. And he says that, he's been in the barracks the whole time. He's been in Edinburgh the whole time. He did not drive out to Gateshead. This is quickly debunked because, and I don't understand this about people who commit crime in the UK. The UK is heavily surveilled by CCTV. They catch practically everything. So when he makes this dumbass lie about never leaving Edinburgh, they actually quickly discover that, there's a CCTV camera right by where Alice lives, and you can see where Alice gets dropped off by her coworker, and then you see Harry Dillon's car pulling up closer to get closer to her building. So, but that, it's like, you were there. Then he tries to say, like, all right, I was there, and we talked, and then I left, and she was still alive when I left. And it's like, okay, Harry, but then why is your blood in her car? Why is her blood in your car? It's just like, yeah, it's that whole Dave Chappelle, gotcha, bitch. So then he comes up with a third story, and this is probably the most asinine out of all of them. He says that, so what really happened was that he went to go talk to Alice. She came at him and then turned, she attacked him. And instead of stabbing him with a knife, she went ahead and stabbed herself and committed suicide. This is ridiculous, especially in the fact that Alice's throat was slashed 6 times. I find it very hard to believe that any type of suicide would be that. Also, it doesn't make sense for Alice to commit suicide, considering the fact she's not the one who got dumped. She's not the one who would be like, if I can't have you, no one can kind of situation. That would be him. So it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't add up. And they know he's full of shit, and they arrest him. They hold him until the trial. Here's what really happened to Alice. So Alice got home. We know that she was looking for something to wear and texting with the guy she likes. I think she was even texting one of her sisters. At some point, Harry comes through a window, and we know he's coming through a window because when they go through his phone, they find a picture of the window that's accessible that he could get through to get in because it's unlocked. He has a picture from the outside. He goes through there and, surprises Alice. She tries to run from him, and she runs into her restroom and tries to lock him out. But she's like this tiny little thing. He, overpowers her, forces the door open, slashes her throat 6 times, and leaves. At Harry Dillon's trial, I mean, this guy really, really wanted to add insult to injury, because he really went out of his way to try to hurt the family as well. He would make these little snide comments about her parents or about Alice, or just make up some bullshit about like how Alice felt about her parents. And it was always, like this really negative, ugly feeling, which wasn't true either. He really just wanted to hurt anyone and everyone. But Luckily, of course, his stories are such crap, and there is the escalation. Oh, and then not to mention, there's actually a history of Harry Dillon. His defense team tried to have it, like, kept out of the trial, but because of the progression, and it's very obvious this is a habit, they allowed it to be in. We have actually two incidences before with Harry Dillon with two separate women. The first one being where he, same thing with Alice. She broke up with him. He fucking harassed the shit out of her, and she got the no contact order. And lo and behold, suddenly he's not stationed in Kent anymore. He's stationed in Edinburgh. There's no concrete evidence as to what, he was transferred or PCS'd over there because of the no contact order, but it kind of sounds about right. Just saying. The second incident, and I feel like this one really speaks to his character, is that one day he sees an ex-girlfriend of his out, and she's out with her new boyfriend. This motherfucker walks right up to her and spits in her fucking face. So he's arrested and charged with that also, because who the hell does that? Is so fucking gross. So this is clearly a pattern of a guy who just cannot handle rejection and clearly thinks that any woman who decides to date him is suddenly belonging to him. He suddenly owns them. With all this history and the evidence against him, the jury actually makes quite a quick decision and they find him guilty. He's sentenced to a minimum of 22 years in prison for the murder of Alice Ruggles. This is a bittersweet victory for Alice's family. He'll never hurt another girl, but it doesn't bring Alice back. Her family goes ahead and opens a trust in Alice's honor. It's called the Alice Ruggles Trust, and they offer help and resources for people in that same situation and to help them get out and get away. Which, I mean, what a lovely tribute, really. It really is scary to be in that position. And I think it's worse because, again, Alice was failed. She did everything right. She didn't antagonize him. She didn't go back and forth and kind of fuck with his head or anything. There's no proof of that either. She let it get to a certain point to where she really felt unsafe and she called authorities like she's supposed to. She did everything right. And then in that paramount moment, the real moment when it really counted, she was brushed off. From what I understand, this because, of course, her family raised fucking hell, which, I mean, who wouldn't? This caused, all of the authorities and everything, training. They had to go through, training exercises to understand, all of the signs of stalking and the severity of it, and to be more sensitive to it. That way they can avoid any other situations and try to avoid this happening to any other people. I'm not going to say just women, because I know men who've had some really fucking crazy women who have tried to destroy their life. People are just fucking crazy. But what do we learn from this, right? There's got to be a takeaway. And I think in this case, the takeaway is, there's the cliche when someone shows you who they are, believe them, right? That's the cliche. But also, I think we've all are quite guilty of seeing a red flag and maybe allowing a green flag to outweigh it, or brushing it off because maybe we're punishing them for a previous relationship, or we have this history of self-sabotaging and we think maybe that's what we're doing in this case. I think you really need to analyze, and if your gut's telling you no, this is wrong, then you need to get out. If you're wrong, then you're wrong. And maybe you and that person can reconnect and rekindle it, and maybe they'd understand. But I think we all are a little guilty of looking past a red flag because how we feel in that moment, how they make us feel. Maybe they offer something else we've never had. But a sign's a sign. If it's a red flag that can escalate, for example, again, this expectation for you to respond immediately. Once you give them that control, it's going to go downhill quite quickly. When you see those flags, you need to accept them and just let them go. I've gotten pretty far, actually. I'm in denial at how tiny my toddler is, so I'm more than halfway done with it. It's going to be huge on her because she's so fucking skinny. But Yeah, I thank you for joining me. Again, if you like what you hear, like what you see, please interact, like, follow, subscribe. Find me on TikTok, Facebook, I would say Instagram, but I think I'm on that one the least, and Facebook's second least. I'm mainly on TikTok, but I thank you for joining me. And remember, evil looks just like us. Okay, bye.